Welcome back to Beyond the Deal, the podcast where we go past the transactions, past the titles, and into the stories that actually shape who we become. Because the truth is, success is never just about the deal. It's about what it costs you, what it builds in you, and who you become on the other side of it. Today's guest is someone who knows that journey firsthand. Ian Noble spent over a decade building and scaling a multi-location business, growing it to 14 locations and leading a team of more than 90 people. From the outside, it looked like success. But like so many entrepreneurial journeys, there was a deeper story unfolding beneath the surface. In 2023, Ian made the decision to exit the business, a move that didn't just change his financial trajectory, but forced a redefinition of identity, purpose, and what freedom actually means. Today, he stepped into a new season as a passive investor, focusing on real estate, private lending, and building a life designed around time freedom and intentional living. This conversation isn't just about business or investing. It's about the weight of responsibility, the tension between growth and burnout, and what happens when the thing you built is no longer who you are. So whether you're in the middle of building, questioning what's next, or navigating your own version of success, this episode is going to meet you there. Let's get into it. Ian Noble, welcome to Beyond the Deal. It's great to have you with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to be with you. Let's get started. Just tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, what you like to do with your time, and kind of how you originally got into that business ownership thing.
Okay. Born in Austin, Texas, got into a family business after going to the University of Texas. It was a dry cleaning company. And this was right about the recession in 2008 and 9. So I became a dry cleaner and I thought I wanted to work big business. And my dad steered me towards working in the family business. And I'm really happy that I went that direction. So my background is as an entrepreneur. I was a small business owner and involved in that for 14 years before getting out of that industry. So it taught me everything I know, got me into real estate, which is what I do today. I started that early in that journey as well, alongside the business. And then along the way, got married, have 3 children now. We like to travel. I like to run is what I do for fun. And just enjoying the time. So it goes fast with 3 little ones, and I try to spend as much time as possible with them right now.
Wow, that's awesome. How old were you whenever you got into this business? You said young. So like what kind of life timeline are we looking at here?
I was 21.
Okay.
And I didn't work it. It wasn't a fallback plan during college or anything like that. It was an opportunity that was there for a business that had a good foundation, but needed some attention. My dad had gotten burnt out from the business, like a lot of business owners do. And what eventually happened to me, I got burnt out after a while. But it was just going in there and being an employee. I pressed clothes. I drove the trucks. I did the laundry. I treated stains. I have all these useless skills now that I don't get to put to use anymore. Yeah, good life skills. But it taught me everything I knew about business. And it also gave me the confidence to where if I wanted to get into any business, which I will in time again, have another business when maybe the kids are a little bit older, I can apply those same principles and know how to run an operation. Because I was a dry cleaner, but you take that away, the end product, and many businesses run the same way. We have staff, advertising, payroll, HR, leases, all the stuff that comes with running a business can be applied to the next chapter. So I had a lot of fun doing it and really set me up. I'm really passionate about people in business and ownership in general, just because I think there's no better way to secure a future for yourself and for your family. So even though I'm in real estate now, I'm push small business ownership and making it for yourself.
Awesome. So you spent, I think when I looked at your LinkedIn, it was about a decade or a little over a decade kind of building and scaling this dry cleaning company. And this was like, or at least became over the time, multi-location, right? Was it 14 locations? Is that the number?
Yeah, 14.
Okay. Yeah. And like 90 people on staff? Is that over 90? Getting those numbers?
Yes.
Okay. So what did that journey look like behind the scenes? Like how big was that company when you sort of jumped in at 21? What did the scaling look like? And just what was that toll like for you personally? Like okay, looks like success on the outside. What's going on behind the scenes?
The behind the scenes was pretty messy. There weren't any systems put into place. And so there were actually more than 14 locations when I got involved. Over the years, this was a business started in the late 80s. And at that time, dry cleaning was the way to become a millionaire. And everybody dressed nicely, men and women wearing suits and dresses. And it's obviously shifted in today's environment, but back then it was a big deal. So the foundation was there and the demand over the years had diminished. But I think our low prices kept the business afloat. So from the outside, you would see a lot of locations, and the brand presence was all over town. In Austin, there's just a couple of them that are recognized in terms of multiple locations. For an outsider looking in, it looked great, but it wasn't incredibly profitable. In fact, a lot of stores were underperforming. Some stores were losing money. And I just started with the low hanging fruit, just cleaning up some of our image. We computerized, so that industry was behind. At that point, everything was paper receipts. So you'd come in to collect your clothing, and we'd have to go to your last name and thumb through it all on the 3-layer paper, and it was just took forever. So took care of the low hanging fruit, put uniforms on the staff, focused on our reputation online, and over time, just little by little, that started to turn around. We became more profitable. I shut down stores that were underperforming, opened some new ones, and eventually learned that the industry was changing and maybe having multiple locations wasn't the formula moving forward. So then I developed another division from that company that was pickup and delivery only, a premier service that would go to and from your door. So I began operating 2 businesses, both dry cleaners, but under different names and different operating models to really complement and put us in a good position. And then COVID hit, and COVID is like getting punched in the face for a lot of business owners. Some thrived, right? The dry cleaning industry was not one of those. Yeah. We lost a substantial amount of revenue in the 80% range, and it happened quick. So you mentioned 95 employees earlier. I think we were at low 100s at that point. And I remember those first few weeks, I went and shut down one of our cleaning facilities, had to tell 20 or 18 people goodbye that had been with us for quite some time. It was a sad time. And I think that had led to my burnout was starting to accrue by that point, but I needed to survive. I'd never worked harder in my life during COVID, just trying to make this operation survive because we had families and stores and leases, and those things weren't forgiven. My name was tied to a bunch of store leases and personal guarantees, and you were going to do whatever it took to make sure your business made it. And then we did. So luckily, some good planning and some cash reserves and taking advantage of what was out there for small businesses during the time got us through, and the company became more profitable after COVID. We restored all of our pre-COVID sales. And then I got an email one day about somebody purchasing the company, and everything shifted. My mindset changed from there. I knew I was emotionally ready to do that. And I spent quite a couple of years after that, really making sure that this business was set up to where I could sell it. And it changed my whole perception of how you should be running a business, because before it was me, and putting myself into every single position in that company. But afterwards, it turned into how can I empower everybody else and not me? Like, we don't want me as a part of this equation. So that was what that transition looked like, and happy to be on the other side.
Wow.
One email changed it all in COVID.
Yeah. So almost didn't open it either.
Wow.
Yeah. Almost hit delete.
Wow. And that's who bought the whole operation.
Yeah. Wow. An individual, and he structured it like a private equity deal, and it's amazing. He's retained our staff. So the dry cleaning industry.
Do you free lifetime dry cleaning?
I think so. I try not to abuse it, but I do miss that, having to iron the shirts and whatnot. So I go visit them from time to time.
Yeah.
But it was, to me, that was a legacy. This was a family business. My dad started it. I bought it from him. Went 7 figures into debt. It was a traditional purchase.
Yeah.
And then when I got through all that, was able to pass it on to the next person to bring it to the next generation. And that's happening there. So it's really special to see that the company, I didn't want to sell this business and have it go in the sand or have it run downhill. They're doing an amazing job though. And I'm really happy with how that transition went.
So I'm curious, you got the email and started thinking about selling, and then how did you end up figuring out what's next? And you have 3 kids to take care of. And I mean, that's a big decision.
Sure. Yeah. At the time, I didn't have all 3 of them yet, but I did. I had my daughter, and I think my wife was pregnant with our second. And a lot of number one, I hadn't sold the business before. So you want to make sure as a business owner that all the work that you've put in is going to pay off and that you are rewarded too, because that's why we're in business. A lot of it's passion and heart, but at the root of it, people are there to make a living for themselves as well. So it was determining what were the best practices. I mentioned earlier, putting staff in place, key staff, to make sure that when the new owner came in, that they weren't buying a job. It's the number one thing that small businesses face when they're trying to sell their business, is that if every relationship or practice is tied to the owner, it doesn't make that business as valuable as it could be. So I always suggest to business owners, make sure that, 3-5 years out, even beforehand, if they have no intent on selling, try to figure out a way to do it, because even if you don't sell, maybe you can reduce your burnout. Or you got to remember that people don't get into business just to work themselves to the bone. They want to enjoy the benefits of being an owner. Yeah. But you hear all these gurus out there talking about working on your business and not in your business. I completely, at this level and the stage that we were at, I disagree. I think that the owners need to be involved heavily. I think that the care level that an owner can bring, and from a leadership perspective, there's nothing that can replace that. So at this stage of business, yes, you need to be in your business, working in your business to make sure that it's running as best as it can be. That comes up all the time. So I like bringing it up because it's not realistic. Like you have to, you can be absent, but then your business won't be as good as it could be.
Yeah. So I'm curious in that part, because you make a great point that in order to sell, you want to sell something that mostly self-functions, right? So what would you say were the key things that you saw a need to do or stepped into do to create that for your business? And how do you translate that to how you communicate with other people who ask you, how did you do this? Would you say, was it like developing leaders? Was it just hiring the right people? Was it more systems-based? Like, what were the key things that took your business from, I could sell this today and I'd be handing someone a job, to I can sell this today and I can hand them a fully functioning system?
It would be recognizing that sometimes as an owner, you are the bottleneck, and perhaps you are in your head and in actuality the best person to do that job, but you can't do it all. So it's empowering others to make sure that they can get in there and take over, even if they're doing it at 80% capacity of what you could do. You're going to be better off putting those people in position, especially with the exit in mind. And then another way that I framed all of my decision-making was based on multiples that I knew could be obtained when selling the company. So for small businesses in general, let's pretend there's a 3 multiple on EBITDA or their earnings, net profit, whatever you want to spin it. You then need to be thinking about your decisions and how you run your business and what's worth it and what's not. Because when a business owner or when a buyer comes to look at your business, they're going to be looking at your P&L, and that profit and loss statement will have a number in the very bottom corner that's your net income. And there's some other factors that play into this, but that is how a buyer makes their decision. And so for business owners that are looking at this, they need to recognize that number is very crucial. And if you want to sell your business on a multiple, let's say of 3, then every dollar that you spend in your expense category will cost you $3 at your sale. So if you're going to buy something that's $10,000 for your business and it's not crucial or necessary, that $10,000 expense could cost you $30,000 when you're exiting. So I stress for owners not to cheat or shortcut or not reinvest back into their business, but to be very mindful of that multiple and what that dollar means when they're on the last few years of their business, because buyers will want to look at your last 3 years, and they're going to want to see that there's consistency, that there's growth, and you're going to be valued off that. So just pay really close attention to that and make sure that you are making good business decisions, because you can't always control revenue, but you can control expenses, and you need to watch them very closely. So control is a big part too. Perhaps give up your control on the operations, but take control in the expense column to make sure that you guys are keeping as much as you can back in your business.
So did you make a decision to sell the business before you knew it was next, or did you have something in mind when you got that email?
I had nothing in mind. I had always, so before, I never had the thought of selling. I knew that someday I would want to, but I can't tell you that I was ready to do it at that point. So I believe that the email and the discussion prompted my readiness to say, oh yeah, that this is actually what I do need emotionally. Financially, it was okay. It was good, but the business was making good money. And so from a financial perspective, I was indifferent, because had I continued to run that business and stay there, I was happy with that as well. But it was the emotional toll that it had taken on me, to where I would go home and I couldn't check out. I was always on the clock, and it seemed glamorous. People, oh, must be nice owning this big company with 100 employees. No, I worked like a dog, and I was there, always on call. My phone was never off. My mind was never off. People that work a 9 to 5 could check out and go home. And as a business owner, you can't. And that's not to say 9 to 5ers don't think about work at all. I'm not getting at that. Yeah. I'm just saying that they're not going to get a call at 1 a.m. that the building's on fire, or that none of the clothing is in the facility where it needs to be. That may be somebody else's job. So those are the sorts of things that in small business happen all the time. People quit, and you have to go pull the weight. And if you want, especially in the small business world, you have to run a lean staff. And so often there's not this big cushion of employees that's ready to go do that for you. If you had that and you employed them throughout the year, you would make a lot less profit, because you'd be paying in excess. And so you have to find that balance of having key people that can help you with these things, but yet knowing that you can't have too many employees, because it'll cut into your bottom line. So back to the question though, it was an emotional decision that I knew it was time. My passion was lost in that business, and I felt that I had reached my capacity. I was at this glass ceiling to where I needed to reinvest myself, energy and money, back into the business to take it to the next level, or I could just ride in this comfort zone. But I don't think comfort zones are good in businesses. I think you always need to be improving. And I believe that I was stale that last year or two. So it was time to give it to the next person to make sure that they could take it to the next level.
So as you stepped away, finished that business sale, and it was off your plate, what was kind of that experience like? Was it surprising? And how did you kind of work through? I would imagine there would be some amount of identity shift that would happen. You're going from a business owner, that's your whole life. You're running it 24/7. And then all of a sudden you're not. So what was that like for you?
It was a surreal moment. I remember walking out of the office where we had closed the transaction, and I was so happy and relieved. But that feeling only lasted a little bit. You mentioned identity. Identity crisis is a big thing for people that have exited their business. It hit me. Everything that I'd done the last 15 years of my life was tied to that business, and now it was gone. And although I was rewarded for it through the sale, money doesn't change these things. Yeah. Everybody has a passion for something and how they know and plan on spending their day. And I like to operate, and I enjoyed what I did there. So that was pretty difficult. I was very, I'll call it, anxious to get back into another business.
Okay.
I told my wife, I'm going to go buy another one. I'm going to do it differently this time, which I would, and I will. You learn a lot, and I wouldn't put myself, I was 21 years old. I had no business experience when I got into that. Yeah. I needed to learn that business. And I felt that credited its success later on, but I wouldn't do it again the same fashion, because I don't want to buy a job like that. Mm-hmm. So the identity crisis was real. And there's pros and cons to this of, not having this business versus what I do today. And what led me to where I'm at in real estate, by the way, today. And that was what I loved all through small business and entrepreneurship. So any money that I would make from the business, I lived beneath my means. I would make sure that my housing and everything was taken care of, but I wasn't out there living a lavish life. I would reinvest everything back into real estate. Mm-hmm. And I started this at a young age. So this was, I think, my early 20s. I bought my first rental house. And then I tried to follow that trajectory nearly every year. Sometimes there was a gap where nothing happened. And it wasn't one of these guys or gals that went out and bought a ton of property really fast. It was just a slow and steady buy and hold. And my income came from the business, but then I could buy these assets that would pay me later. Because people get confused in real estate thinking that it's going to change their life in the beginning. These rental houses don't cash flow a whole lot. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of benefits 10 years down the road when your tenants paid off a lot of this building. But long story short, that's what I was doing all through my ownership in the dry cleaning business. And so my goal was to always replace my active income, which is what I spent my hours on in work. And I wanted my passive income, which is what I call my real estate stuff, to offset or to match my active. And I never got there, but I was on the way. And I think that had the business not been as successful, then I might have caught up with my rentals, but it never happened. And I'm glad that it didn't. But that was a foundation for me when I exited and what was to come next, because I had spent the last 10 years doing that as well, every year.
Okay. So when you were in that transition, you already had over a decade of experience doing this in a small kind of personal way. You were also property managing those properties?
That's correct. I was self-managing single family long-term rentals, okay, and short-term rentals, and then commercial like triple net retail spaces. Wow. So I understood how it worked.
Yeah.
From all those years of doing it.
Yeah. So how did you kind of make that transition? Obviously, at some point, you said, let's make this a thing. And okay, so Run Steady Investments, this is your company, right?
Yes.
I love the name. This has a personal tie for you, right? That you're running background.
Yeah. Turns out everybody has, all the names are taken for what I wanted. And eventually I just said, let's just make it something personal. But yes, it's related to running and consistency over time. I'm an endurance runner. And so I think investing plays the same role, or it's a good way to follow that. So that's where the name came from.
I love it. That's great. And so did you start that company like right away? Or how did you get to that point, transitioning out of dry cleaning into Run Steady?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny you asked that too, because I emailed everybody I knew when I first sold and said, well, after I started Run Steady, here's what I'm doing now. I'm in real estate, and had these questions come up. Like, you were a dry cleaner. How were you doing real estate? But the truth is I was doing it all along. It was this new business is just at a different capacity. The way that I got into it was when I sold the business. Like many people that exit or have a successful sale of their company, they now have a liquidity event and they need a place to put their earnings. So at the time, the day one answer is money market accounts. They were paying 5.25%. I thought that was a good return for a while, and it was. And then those rates began to go down. And then you start to realize that in real estate specifically, there are other opportunities that can pay you more, that I consider low risk. And so I'm a low risk person by nature, and I wanted to design or place this money into low risk investments. So I'm not the person that's looking for these big home run development deals or massive returns. I like consistency, high single digit, maybe low double digit returns, but I'm not looking for these deals that have a high upside or high trajectory. And when I did that, there were two things. Number one, it needed to check that box and align with what I cared about as an investor. I realized I couldn't go and buy all this property myself in a short period of time. And I wanted to be able to use real estate to offset some of the gain from my business, because my wife and I, she had real estate professional status because of what she did for her career and with our short-term rentals. So as a married couple, we were able to take advantage of the tax code and use our real estate losses. And when I say losses, this isn't losing money. These are paper losses through depreciation.
Yep.
We got to take advantage of that in that first year. So after I sold, that was the effort. It was, how can I depreciate and lower my tax bill as much as you legally can and build wealth at the same time. And then I got hooked. That was my first time doing passive investing. As an entrepreneur, it was really difficult because for me, it used to be in charge of everything. And all of a sudden you're giving away the reins to somebody else. So I learned really quickly in that business, in the world of passive investing in real estate, that trust is crucial. It all depends on the person that's running it. The deals, they're always out there. They're all over the place. And I tell people this all the time now, that when I talk to them about investing passively, you will never, a lot of the industry pushes urgency on people, like they need to invest and get in now. This is a sweet deal. There are so many of them, and there will be one tomorrow. So the most crucial thing for people to do is to make sure that they trust the person and that they align with them that is bringing the opportunity to them. So yeah, it was a personal need to have some tax write-offs. And then I started having fun with it. I became a full-time passive investor, and I still actively acquire stuff, but the passive investing was really fun, especially because I wanted time freedom. Everything that I needed before, I didn't have any more hours on my plate. And so I could continue to do it all myself, but that's what I told myself I wouldn't do again once I sold the company. And so that's where the concentrated effort was. And eventually I thought, how can I make a business out of something I enjoy doing, which was on the real estate side, that doesn't have a lot of employees that will call in sick, which I was so tired of. And this was the answer. And so now what I do is I help people, I identify these passive income opportunities, and I help bring investors through my network, and we co-invest as a group into these low risk real estate opportunities, to where everybody, including myself, is passive in these deals. So we're looking for really good teams and good operators. And that's how I spend my time now, is identifying those opportunities, vetting them, saying no a lot, and then hopefully getting to a point to where we can bring in our investors with us, and we can invest into something that's low risk, cash flowing day one, and that I feel is safe and stable, because I'm investor number one, which is fun. Instead of being like a business, I get to say, do I want to invest in this myself? And is it good for me? And if it's a yes, then we can potentially bring other people along the way. So it's different than me being a business that just has a menu of items for people to pick from and all this commission-based stuff. No, I'm an investor, and I play investor first, and then people can come and do it with me. So I'm having fun doing it.
Yeah, I can tell you are. It's fun. I think we've had one other guest on that does passive real estate investing. So it was interesting to learn his model a little bit too, because it does seem like on one hand, there's some similarities to the different things. You know, you're in all of them, you're buying real estate, you're making money off of it, you're distributing it to your investors, and then there's like a sell date at some point, probably for the fund or however you're structuring it. And there's a payout at that point. But the specifics of what that look like are so different in terms of what kind of assets you're buying, what your operating teams look like, where you are. So what is your system like a little, like if I was an investor and I was talking to you and I was asking these questions, tell me a little bit about the product that you sell. Where am I going to be investing? What kind of properties am I buying? Like, what does that look like inside of Run Steady Investments?
Sure. So I focus on two different avenues. One of those is private lending. This is real estate based. This is what we call debt investing. So we're essentially, imagine like a bank that's giving loans to a bunch of houses. And we do that to fix and flippers and have a large portfolio of homes. So that is one avenue for people. And that's really good for those that want consistent income. That's 8, 9, or 10%, depending on where people are. And it's just fixed. So for me, that's one avenue. And then we have the equity side. And in my case, I like mobile home parks. So private lending and mobile home parks are the two areas of concentration. Some people, when they hear mobile home parks, they think, no way, I'm not going to do that. it's probably limiting my business as well, but that's okay because I already mentioned I play investor first and I'm going into things that I think are the best deal possible.
Yeah.
Mobile home parks are a special breed in the world of real estate because they solve an affordable housing problem that we have in the US.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at how people either buy or pay rent or how they live, they're generally speaking, mobile home parks is going to be the most affordable way to live. And there's a stigma behind them that they might be run down or they're places that people, I don't want to live there. It's not necessarily true. If you traveled around the United States, you're going to see very nice ones and very bad ones, just like you would with homes, shopping centers, apartment complexes. Yeah. So there's levels of this in every type of asset. But we're looking for these ones that are cash flowing day one. They have some scale to them, which by that, I mean, there's enough lots or size on these mobile home parks to be able to raise the rent a little bit once we clean it up and for it to impact the bottom line pretty significantly. So we're always looking for communities that are clean. There's a family presence. There's not, high crime. Memphis, Tennessee. That's be careful for Memphis. No, I'm stereotyping there, but people bring up different cities and areas, and it's like, yeah, you need to, whenever you're checking into any real estate, call the local police department and ask them, give them the address and say, what do you know about this place? So I do that all the time, and the police are happy to help.
That's a good tip.
We're looking, we're looking for these good communities, and those are the two. So on one side, you have the income, which is the lending portion, and that's liquid, and you can pull money in and out. And then on the equity side, when we're buying these parks, think of that like a long-term partnership. You mentioned earlier, there's normally some sort of range, 3 to 7 years. Generally, we try to either refinance those properties. The mission isn't always to sell right away. If you find a good asset, it's good to hold on to it. So one strategy that we like right now is buying and then refinancing once the property is improved, and in hopes to return capital for all the investors that were in it. And then they still own their piece of the ownership. So they earn their return along the way. They get the tax benefit in the first year. They're owning this asset. They're getting some cash flow, and then there's some upside down the road. So for me, talking to an investor about run steady investments, it's really identifying, what are you looking for right now? What stage are you at in your life? If you're 65 years old, you're probably not interested in going and acquiring a property that has a 7-year time horizon. Yeah. You want income right now because you just retired and you need to replace your income, and you want to make X each year, every month, right? With a paycheck. So it just depends on what the person's looking for. And if somebody is in their 40s or 50s and they do have more time on the horizon and they say, I want the equity and the ownership of something, then, we figure out what's best with them. But frankly, a lot of times, you'll get people that say, I'm looking, wow, the stock market's paying me 18% lately. I want at least that in these deals. They need to stay in the stock market then. Yeah. There's a risk profile that comes with this. And I'm looking for, low level risk, flat stuff that we can control. And the stock market's not that. So I'm not this anti-stock market guy. I'm in it as well. But I always tell people that it's not realistic to expect the same number on the screen.
Yeah.
And real estate has really good tax benefits. So I like helping people get involved that may not necessarily be real estate people, because it is a full-time job if you want to be good at it. And most don't have that time. Most of the people in our group are business owners or high earning professionals that have a corporate career that's demanding, and they have the money, but they don't have the time. And they understand that real estate's a good tool to build wealth, but they don't want to go and be a landlord. So this is where this whole idea of getting people involved passively is it really turned a corner, I think, the last couple of years. And you probably see it on social media and online, but you need to be careful who you're dealing with. You have to like the person. I know that's a silly criteria, but too many people in the industry, even I'm in it, and I get people that will pitch me and try to sway me on this deal. And you just get this gut feeling that you don't want to do business with that person, even if the deal seems okay. So you just need to, as an investor, I caution people to do the same thing. Find people they think they align with, and make sure that they are, putting their own money into it, their skin in the game, because the last thing you want to do is be sold something that you are uneasy about. Like, walk away from those situations.
Yep. So you guys work with, is it qualified investors only? And do you have like a minimum buy-in amount?
Traditionally, they're, the qualified investors or accredited investors. Those aren't our rules. Those are from the SEC, and we abide by those. And it's based on how you raise for your deals. So if they're publicly announced and they're online and on a website, the understanding is that you're going to be soliciting this to the public. And therefore, if you don't have that relationship with them already, there are certain rules that we need to follow to make sure that everyone is protected and safe. So yes, accredited investors only. And generally speaking, for minimums, there are on the equity side with getting into mobile home parks, you can say it's $50,000. It's deal dependent, by the way. Some are 50,000, some may be 100,000. On the debt, the private lending side, the debt fund that I run, that one is 25,000 minimum. So a lot of people do that to get their foot in the door and then realize this is something they like and trust, and they then climb the ladder with returns based on what's put in there. But to the point of trusting these people, we're not selling, birthday cakes or a service that, you would buy for your home. This is serious money. And so it's important to really make sure that A, you understand it, and B, that, you feel good about it. And if you don't do it. There are lots of ways for people to earn and to make a good living. And so this is just one of them that I call is like pressing the easy button to get into real estate.
Yeah. I love it. It's a great way. I mean, I'm like, man, how do I do this? Because this is such a great business. Like it's a neat thing. I didn't know it existed until like 2 years ago. So for me, it's been just fun to be like, wow, there's a whole world out there that you don't have to like self-manage a property. Because that's what me and my husband have done. And when you get that 3 a.m. call that the water pipes burst and like it's like, oh my gosh, like I have to get out of my bed and go deal with a terrible situation in the middle of winter. Like that's not what I signed up for when I bought a property,
If you drive by in your local market, if you drive by an apartment complex, that's just a good example. That's a very common passive investment. Odds are that it's structured that way. That there are a lot of people, a couple of general partners, they'll call it, that led that deal. And then a bunch of people that put in $50,000 checks. And they now incrementally own their piece of the pie, but they're not running the operation. And then it's always set up the same way. There's a tax benefit to it, to many types of it, not all types, but to many types of these investments there are. And then there's cash flow, and you share profits, generally speaking, after certain criteria is met or returns, then the profit's shared. But it's worth it to share. It would be the same as if you own the property yourself and you employed a property manager, or you paid people to get some work done for you. Or if you're a business owner and you have employees, you're sharing your profits with them to get the work done so you don't have to. So it's the same system, right? It's very much an operating active business, but the people that put up the money on the front end get to be passive.
Yep.
So you're in the two asset classes. Are they in a geographic area? I mean, are they kind of near where you are so you can go see them?
The private lending is concentrated in the Carolinas and the southeastern states. So that's where our team is, and the concentrated effort is there. It's another one of those businesses. You need to be in it and in the local market to make safe lending criteria and to make sure that you're close to your assets.
Yeah.
The mobile home parks, they can be all over the U.S., but they're not. Generally speaking, they're going to be in the Southeast as well, or the Midwest, or the Tennessee, Kentucky range. There aren't really restrictions to where they would be, but you're looking for economies that are growing, where there's job growth, where there's low taxes primarily, and good landlord restriction or rules. Just investor-friendly states. Yeah. This is a consensus amongst the industry for a lot. You'll hear people all the time say, I don't invest in that state. Well, that's just because they have a certain sentiment about the tax or the local laws that exist there. But generally speaking, yes, people migrate towards areas that are easy to do business with. So our last one was Tennessee and Kentucky. And Tennessee is known to be an easy state to do business with. There's no state income tax that's pro-growth. These are things that people like, and markets that we want to invest in.
Okay. And then anyone can invest from anywhere. It's just a matter of meeting the criteria.
Yeah, it's just meeting the criteria. People can be all over the U.S. Foreign investors are a bit tricky, but generally, for me, it's U.S. based, and then we become partners. In the way behind the scenes that works with these deals, people end up getting monthly or quarterly updates, and then there's distributions that go out, and that's kind of what the cadence looks like on the back end for investors that are in these deals. They're getting updates to see exactly what's going on to the property. We get pretty granular as well. It's sometimes I have personal friends in it as well, and they'll say, I don't care that you saved $300 a month on the lawn care. But to me, it's important because $300 a month, well, that's $3,600 a year. And if you look at how these properties are valued, that can be, substantial. Everything counts. So this is the type of breakdown that I like to give, even if it's information overload, just so people can take it and understand what really goes into the efforts behind the scenes.
Yeah, those numbers really are driving whether or not you're successful. So every little bit makes a difference to that bottom line.
Yeah. And that's real estate's not big business, right? You mentioned rental properties and getting that call. Mm-hmm. When you have a single family rental home and your refrigerator goes out and you have to, spend $1,100 on a new one, for some people that could be half year's profit, or, it's a big deal. So every little thing counts.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm. So when you zoom out and think about, okay, from 2023-ish to now, about 3 years, like how has your life changed? What matters to you now? What does success mean to you in this season? And yeah, just give us a little bit of that picture.
Success for me right now is the time freedom and having the ability to check out and not work when you choose not to. So last week was a time when my kids were off school. We went out of town to the Smoky Mountain National Park, and I just didn't work at all. And it was nice. And so this is a freedom that I wouldn't have felt before. So much of what I do now is trying to structure building wealth for my family and the investors and people that are with us, and designing it to where they're not allocating any more time towards this. I'm not going to say that passive investing is zero time. I think for an investor, there's a lot of time up front that they should spend. But once that deal gets going, they're not spending time on it. And so what I look for in business and opportunities personally right now is how can I free up my time, continue to spend that time with my kids. I mentioned 3 kids earlier. They're young. They're 5 and under, the date of this recording. So for me, that time goes fast. And I don't feel that if I was in the same business capacity or role that I was in previously with my dry cleaners, that I would have given them the time that they deserved. Mm-hmm. So I think it's pretty powerful being able to do that. And that buzzword gets thrown out a lot about freedom and financial freedom, time freedom, but it really is true. And it's just a mindset shift to always think about who can do these things for you, not how can you get it done yourself, but who can do it for you and how can you participate from the sidelines.
Awesome. Well, Ian, we want to wrap up here. We have a final question we ask everyone. So I'm excited to hear your answer because you've done a lot of things in a short time. But if you could go back and start your career over, so go back to pre-21-year-old Ian, but you could keep all the knowledge and experience that you've gained over these years of doing business. Is there anything that you would do differently and why?
Rewinding the clock, I would focus on people and partnerships a lot more than I used to. I preach about it now, but honestly, that came after selling the business or the year leading up to it. I said no to a lot of opportunities and to partnering up because number one, I think it was confidence that may have been in myself to know that I can do it myself. Mm-hmm. And whether or not I could have done it myself better or worse than that person, that was the type of person that I was. And so rewind the clock, I would partner up. I'd find great people to work with. I think there's a lot of strength in that. And also there's a mentality of, there's accountability that comes with that. In my business, in the dry clean business, I didn't have any partners. There were no mentors necessarily that were there. And I would identify those people, align myself with the best in every industry, and then partner up as much as I could. And I look back and I realize the opportunities missed. And so I always encourage people to do it. Mm-hmm. You do hear horror stories on partnerships. So you be selective there as well, but take those opportunities when you feel that the partnership is strong.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great advice. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time this morning, Ian. It was great to have you on. We loved hearing your insights and about how you do business, and good luck with this moving forward. We're excited to watch you keep going.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. That's it for today's conversation with Ian Noble from Run Steady Investments. I hope you found his insights into business, growth, and passive real estate investing as inspiring and energizing as we did. You'll find all the links to connect with him and with us at SPN Lattice in the show notes. Thanks for hanging out with us on Beyond the Deal. Until next time, keep going, keep growing, and keep building your story.